Discover the unexpected maid who revealed a life-changing no to an incredible millionaire CEO. Emma had never felt attention so taut as the evening of the charity gala at the country club. The air buzzed with the perfume of freshly polished wood and joyous laughter, a stark contrast to the tightness within her chest. She barely registered the chandeliers as they sparkled under the golden lights. All she could feel was the grip of fear around her heart as she tucked her unruly hair behind her ear and adjusted her apron. Her 2 children were at home, their laughter echoing in her mind, fueling her resolve. She had fought too hard to provide for them, working tirelessly under the gaze of opulence that surrounded her. But today, she sensed darkness lurking beneath the glamour. As she scrubbed the glass, she caught snippets of conversation that set alarm bells ringing in her head. Derek Collins, the CEO with a reputation as sharp as the suit he wore, was planning something insidious, a calculated move that would cost her community dearly. "No!" Emma found herself whispering under her breath, strangely determined yet terrified. The stakes had never felt higher, the thought of confronting him both electrifying and paralyzing. She noticed the flicker of the chandeliers seeming to dim in her mind, their glow contrasting her creeping dread. She had always valued integrity, the virtues her grandfather instilled, but now, a cruel twist of fate insisted she choose between her principles and her livelihood. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emma's thoughts spiraled out of control as she maneuvered through the crowd. The laughter, the clinking of glasses all hovered like a threat. Suddenly she found herself in front of Derek, the world narrowing to their shared space. Her heart raced, puffing breath into her chest, screaming for her to step back, but some flicker of rage and conviction, kept her rooted. "No," she managed, clearer this time. Gasps rippled through the room, sharp enough to slice into the tension that suffocated her. Derek's face morphed from surprise to scornful, his confidence momentarily faltering. This was the moment her grandfather had trained her for, the moral crossroads where fear and courage collided. But then reality crashed down. What would she lose? Everything she had fought for, every ounce of stability for her children was under threat. Would her no cost her the job that put food on their table? As whispers darted around her like arrows, Emma trembled, the gravity of her choice pressing down upon her. The pulse in her throat quickened, igniting a rush of doubt. As she met Derek's gaze, she saw contempt behind his cool blue eyes. The conflict within her grew, shifting from internal fear to an aching desire to protect her community. But was she strong enough to carry the burden of their hopes? Emma could already feel darkness swirling, each moment echoing with uncertainty. There was no telling how high the stakes would soar or how far she would fall. The city around her teetered on the precipice, and she stood with her heart in her throat, facing Derek Collins. Would defiance bring her freedom or destroy everything she loved? The answer lingered just out of reach, leaving a gnawing tension that wouldn't easily be silenced. Emma's heart beat loudly in her ears as she locked eyes with Derek, the room around them fading, the world folding into a fragile point of confrontation. Each whisper felt like an arrow, piercing through the veil of false glamour. This was her moment, a fierce and demanding crossroads where she either turned away or stood her ground against the currents threatening to sweep her under. "Do you really think you can intimidate me?" Derek's voice dripped with sarcasm, a cruel smile twisting his lips. For an agonizing heartbeat, Emma faltered. The weight of his power surged around her like a storm. But then she remembered her children's laughter, the quiet resilience developed over years. Her thoughts sharpened, resonating with a sudden clarity. "You're risking everything for a profit. You think this will go unnoticed?" Emma's voice was steadier than she felt, a carefully constructed shield against the fear that threatened to swallow her. Internal doubt still gnawed at her, but she pierced through it. Early mornings spent cleaning, Late nights spent caring for her children, all fused into this singular moment of resistance. Derek's expression wavered. Anger flickered behind his confident facade. "And what do you think you're going to do about it? Change my mind?" he scoffed, scanning the crowd, searching for validation, a witness to his dominance. His self-assurance was tangible, yet Emma sensed a crack forming in his armor. "Yes," she replied, surprising even herself with the determination steadied in her voice. "I don't have power, but I have the truth." The words hung in the air, defiant and raw, as if summoned from the depths of every struggle she had faced. Emma felt the initial buzz of adrenaline morph into a quiet resolve. She was tired of being unseen, of working in the shadows of the opulence that drained her community. Derek may have had wealth, but she had integrity. Lifting her chin higher, she embraced her inherent worth. As if reading her thoughts, Derek leaned in slightly, eyes narrowing. "You think the truth matters in a world driven by money?" His tone was laden with derision. "Best we both keep our realities separate." There it was, the unmasking of a battle not merely for her neighborhood but against a system that thrived on exploitation. Her pulse quickened. He was right in one aspect. Truth often fell on deaf ears. However, she had something more, an urgency that could transform whispers into action. Maybe it's time the truth spoke a little louder. "You underestimate how deep the community's attachment to this place runs. You want to crush it, but it will fight back." She felt emboldened, tapping into a reservoir of latent strength. The gasps around them crescendoed, the crowd now a witness to her defiance. For the first time, Emma could feel her heart's rhythm align with her purpose. She was a single mother, a maid, yes, but also a defender of something sacred. Derek, disconcerted now, stepped back, eyes flashing with a mix of irritation and intrigue. "This isn't over, you know," he warned, turning to leave as whispers intensified behind him. "I'll make sure everyone knows exactly how unfounded your claims are." As he moved away, Emma breathed deeply, relief mingling with the reality of the battle yet to come. The stakes had just escalated in ways she had never anticipated, the storm unleashed. Standing in the midst of the crowd, she felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. This was only the beginning. She had stepped onto a path woven with risks, but laden with potential. Turning back to her duties felt foreign, yet she knew she couldn't retreat into silence now. It was no longer just about her job. It was about integrity and standing up for what mattered. With new urgency, Emma considered her next steps, plans delicately threading through her mind. She needed allies, voices willing to speak alongside hers. How could she gather strength when her world felt so small? And there was another thought, a daunting realization. If she could make this stand, who else had the spirit to join her? The next chapter was unfolding, and its consequences were yet to be revealed. As Emma surveyed the room, acutely aware of Derek's lingering presence, she felt it, the terror of speaking truth in a web of deceit. Would she be able to endure the fallout, or would it set off a chain reaction she couldn't control? The room was heavy with the electricity of uncertainty as Emma stood alone, grappling with the echo of her confrontation. Each breath she took hitched slightly, reminding her that she had crossed an invisible threshold into a new reality, one where silence no longer felt like an option. Seeking refuge amidst the chaos, she made her way to the restrooms, the cool tiles beneath her foot grounding her as she splashed water on her face. In the mirror, she saw a reflection she hardly recognized. Her hair was slightly disheveled from the tensions of the moment, but her gaze held an undeniable fierceness. This was not just about her job. It was about carving a space in the narrative that had long been dictated by men like Derek. With a light hand, she traced the sharp lines of her jaw, whispering into the reflective surface. "You are more than a maid." The realization hit her like a lightning bolt. Beyond her role in the household and the shadows of others' successes, Emma had agency. She could no longer define herself solely through her profession, nor allow others to tether her identity to their perceptions. It was time to wield that awareness as a tool for change. Reinvigorated, Emma returned to the gathering. She observed small clusters of conversations, murmurs thick with doubt and anxiety ignited by her encounter with Derek. Could a voice, her voice, create a ripple? Suddenly aware of how disconnected she had felt in the past, she took a deep breath. It was time to act, not just to plan. Immediate connections formed in her mind. She recalled the various individuals she'd crossed paths with in her years of service, neighbors, fellow workers, even old clients who shared her concerns about the transformation of their community. She needed to tap into those unspoken alliances, channel their shared frustrations into a collaborative force. The thought sent a wave of warmth through her. Gathering her courage, Emma approached a group of mothers from the neighborhood, sharing a tentative smile. "Can we talk?" A hesitant nod from one, and she felt the first threads of connection weave together. As they huddled together, she shared her thoughts, her heart pounding to the beat of possibility. The anger she felt towards Derek's exploitation melted into a shared resolve. Their dialogues began to shift in tone. Ideas sprouted like fragile seedlings in fertile soil. What if they collectively voiced their dissent against the impending changes Derek's ambitions heralded? Gradually, the conversations built upon each other, crystallizing into a powerful, unified vision. Yet beneath the hope lay shadows of doubt. How would they confront the inevitable backlash? Emma's stomach knotted at the memory of Derek's threatening words. The urgency of action loomed, but so did the threat of retaliation. She glanced at the women around her. Their faces reflected her own uncertainty. "Maybe this is where we draw the line," she proposed, each word resonating deeper than the last. "We are not just victims of this situation. We have something valuable to protect. Together, we can amplify the truth." As they pondered the next steps, how to articulate their truth, attract attention, and perhaps even gather allies outside their circle, Emma felt an empowering pulse of direction. She had found not just a strategy but a sense of purpose, a compass guiding her efforts. However, as camaraderie blossomed, the haunting specter of Derek loomed larger. Would he swiftly retaliate? Would he unravel the nascent alliance before it had a chance to blossom? Emma's heart pounded with adrenaline as she considered the realities ahead. She knew they would not be met with quiet acceptance. Whatever path lay ahead would demand resilience, fierce assertion, and perhaps sacrifices that tested her beliefs. With her new network standing beside her, the stakes were higher, the path more challenging. Yet the potential for transformative action ignited a fire. The confrontation with Derek had unfurled a war cry for their community, a call to action that would be impossible to ignore. The stakes were unfurling dramatically. Could they transform shared anguish into empowerment? Or would Derek's dark influence snuff out their momentum before it gained traction? With the resolve of a warrior, Emma took the first determined step forward, eyes fixed on the horizon, fully aware that the time had come to face the repercussions of her awakened purpose. Emma's fingers trembled slightly as she wrapped them around the coffee cup she had filled to the brim with the lifeblood of her new determination. The warmth of the ceramic contrasted with the chill of her lingering anxiety, a reminder of the stakes intertwined in her burgeoning fight. She nudged the group of mothers, now fully engaged and leaning into the ideas coursing through the air like energy. A flicker of excitement ignited in her chest, spurring her to cut through the chaotic thoughts asserting themselves in her head. "We need a plan," she stated, her voice steady, yet charged with urgency. It was time to transform the momentum into a tangible effort. Strategy demanded clarity, a foundation upon which they could build their collective voice. The thought of being upfront and honest about their shared grievances felt electric. One of the mothers, Sarah, nodded in agreement, her brow furrowed as she considered the implications. "How do we begin? What if Derek tries to silence us?" The question loomed larger than she expected. It exposed the fear that each woman seemed to harbor beneath layers of hope. Emma's heart thudded. The truth of their vulnerability was palpable, yet her resolve hardened. "We will counter silence with clarity. We write down our stories, every tiny injustice. What he doesn't expect is our refusal to be rendered invisible." The group buzzed with newfound fervor. It was exhilarating watching hearts and minds align, the collaborative energy shifting towards action. They dug deep into their own experiences, recounting tales of disrespect and manipulation. Emma's pen scrawled against the paper, the words flowing with an intensity that was wholly unfamiliar. Each anecdote, each shared fear was a testament to their mutual strength, and it transformed her. Her hesitations faded as she organized their narratives into a coherent message, boldness layered with vulnerability. They would confront Derek publicly, each woman exposing a facet of the oppressive weight he'd imposed on their lives. Execution became the challenge, a stark bead of sweat trailing down Emma's spine at the realization of what stood before them. Let's gather our thoughts and present a united front at Derek's next meeting. He thinks he can trample over us, but he underestimates the power of our truth, she encouraged, her tone an inspired mixture of resolve and steeliness. As the meeting concluded, waves of exhilaration surged through her. The women dispersed, their faces imbued with purpose. Yet, Emma felt the lingering specter of Derek's shadow creep closer, a reminder that they were not operating in a vacuum. Her heart sank slightly, aware of the risk their adversarial choice entailed. That night, as she returned home, Emma's mind replayed the discussions and determination synthesized during their time together. Her reflection in the darkened windows of her apartment contrasted starkly with the fierce woman she had seen earlier. Instead, the face looking back portrayed a mix of fear and tenacity, forged between the boundaries of risk-taking and safety. With each step, she found herself teetering between doubt and determination. Did her courage adequately reflect the strength of their coalition, or would it collapse under the guise of Derek's opposition? Uncertainty pricked at her as she considered the predominant figures in her life and how their expectations could yet again decide her fate. In bed later, Emma's dreams blurred the lines between ambition and trepidation. As the sun began to arise, illuminating her room with muted hues of orange, a new resolve settled over her. The time to act approached. Resolutely, Emma sat up, drawing a deep breath. "You cannot go back," she whispered into the stillness of dawn. It felt like a vow, one she invited wholeheartedly. Yet as the morning shadows receded, her phone buzzed. A message from Sarah flashed onto the screen. "Derek knows we're gathering. He's not happy." The stakes had shifted again, an unpredictable turn that grasped Emma's heart and squeezed. This realization morphed the space within her, knotting it tightly with anxiety. She understood now that the confrontation would demand everything. Her strength, wit, and perhaps even a piece of herself she wasn't ready to surrender. Emma stood on the precipice of her personal revolution, but she also stood against a formidable force. Would her newfound courage be enough to face the storm brewing on the horizon? One way or another, the coming day would redefine everything she thought she knew. Emma paced her small kitchen, the aroma of brewing coffee mingling with her rising anxiety. The morning light poured in, casting long shadows that flickered as her mind raced with thoughts of Derek's impending wrath. The fragile unity formed during last night's meeting felt suddenly precarious, teetering on the edge of chaos. Yet in this moment of turmoil, she resolved to focus on her next steps, strategizing her approach rather than dwelling on fear. First, she needed to prepare herself mentally. Emma grabbed a notebook, its blank pages inviting her to explore the depths of her thoughts. Armed with a pen, she began to jot down potential scenarios for the upcoming confrontation, creating a mental playbook. Each possible reaction from Derek was met with a corresponding counter. What if he scoffed at their stories? What if he belittled their experiences? These weren't just hypothetical situations anymore. They could become tangible realities. With each scenario wrote down, Emma felt a flicker of empowerment. She read over her notes, the ink reflecting her growing determination. Writing down those thoughts, she began to uncover something profound. Her own voice carried power, and to realize that was a gift. It transformed her fear into resolve, a fuel for the fire burning within her to speak out against Derek. After assembling her thoughts, Emma took a moment to breathe deeply. The anxiety was still there, lurking just beneath her newly found focus, but alongside it was a burgeoning belief in her right to challenge the status quo. Did she have permission to doubt herself, to hesitate? Frustration surged through her. No, she thought. She was done waiting for others to validate her worth. The phone buzzed on the table, pulling her from her thoughts. It was another message from Sarah, more details about Derek's intentions surfacing like dark clouds on the horizon. He intended to undermine their gathered strength, spreading disinformation to discredit the women. Emma clenched her jaw, a reminder that the stakes had just risen higher. Yet within that outrage was an unfiltered energy. She would not allow Derek's actions to dictate her narrative. She glanced at the clock. Time was slipping away. She needed to gather the mothers again to fortify their resolve. But this time she considered a different approach. Rather than just sharing their stories, they should practice their delivery, honing their collective message into something sharp and clear. Each woman would need to articulate her own truth while remaining interconnected to the larger narrative they were crafting together. Emma quickly sent out a message inviting everyone to reconvene that afternoon, her heart racing with the excitement of the unknown. She envisioned the space filling with voices, not just recounting grievances but deliberately rehearsing their truths, each story enhancing the others, creating a tapestry of resilience that Derek would be unable to dismiss. As the hours passed, Emma found herself pacing again, her mind dancing with thoughts of the gathering. Doubt flared occasionally, whispering that she wasn't equipped to lead this charge. But she pushed back against that internal monologue, reminding herself that true leadership often emerged from vulnerability. The moment arrived, and the room filled with familiar faces, hesitant but eager, just as they had been before. Emma began the meeting, her heart thumping against her ribs, but her voice steadied as she laid out their plan, to confront Derek with clarity and confidence. They would not merely react, they would assert themselves. Let's each bring our stories into the light, demonstrate to him that we are not afraid and reveal that we stand strong together. Derek may think he can intimidate us, but we will show him our resilience, she asserted, her voice cutting through the murmurs of apprehension. In those moments, Emma saw the flickers of understanding resonating among her peers. As each mother shared her story with increasing courage, the bond grew stronger. They were crafting a collective experience that would become their shield. The realization rushed over Emma that this wasn't just about the confrontation, it was about redefining their identities in a space long dominated by silence and fear. As they wrapped up their session, another message chimed in her pocket. It was from Sarah again, but it wasn't just another warning. No, it was something more troublesome. Derek's coming after us harder than we thought. We need a backup plan. Emma's heart sank, but a pulse of fierce determination surged through her veins. It was time to prepare for what lay ahead, because now she wouldn't be fighting just for herself, but for every woman willing to stand up too. The tide was shifting, and she realized that the real conflict was not only external. It was also about bringing forth the strength within herself that she had kept hidden for too long. Would her growing self-confidence be enough to weather the storm they were about to face? The upcoming showdown felt inevitable, and Emma knew that the next move would be pivotal. Emma stood at the head of the table, surrounded by the faces of the mothers, each one etched with a mix of fear and determination. The atmosphere crackled with unspoken tension, their lives intertwined by the shared weight of their struggles. This moment, pivotal as it was, demanded not just strategy but an infusion of raw honesty that each of them carried within. Today isn't just about facing Derek, Emma began, her voice steadier than she felt. It's about reclaiming what he's tried to take from us, our dignity, our power, and our stories. She could see a flicker of recognition in their eyes, the dawning realization that they were no longer victims but warriors armed with truths. She directed the first exercise, asking each mother to stand and share her name in a single sentence about what they wanted. Uncertainty flooded the room as hesitant voices filled the space. One by one they spoke, asserting fragments of their experiences. With each story, the narrative transformed. Their voices, once muffled by shame and silence, began to resonate with a chorus of resilience. As the last woman shared her truth, Emma felt the collective energy surge. There was power in vulnerability, a revelation that shattered the timid walls they had built around themselves. Yet, she recognized the looming shadow of Derek's manipulation, a reminder of the strength they needed not just for the confrontation but for the life beyond it. Next, I want us to practice how we voice our concerns to Derek. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the tremor of anticipation in her chest. We need to turn our stories into compelling messages, ones he can't twist or belittle. They began working through the crafting of their messages, each mother writing down key points that encapsulated their fears, hopes, and validations. Emma walked from woman to woman, guiding them gently, but inside, she wrestled with her own insecurities. Was she truly equipped to lead this brave new charge? A deep-rooted doubt surfaced momentarily, casting shadows over her hardened resolve. In one corner of the room, Sarah was struggling with her script. Emma approached, knelt beside her, and whispered, "What do you want Derek to feel when he hears your story?" Sarah looked up, her eyes glistening. "I want him to understand my pain, to feel it." "That's it," Emma affirmed, a spark igniting her own beliefs. "Let him feel your truth. That's what he won't be prepared for." As they continued, Emma absorbed the bravery pouring out of her companions, each story a testament against the very tyranny Derek embodied. The room transformed, filling with laughter and fierce exchanges, the earlier uncertainty replaced by a palpable sense of purpose. After hours of preparation, the palpable anxiety returned as Emma realized they were nearing Derek's impending confrontation. She encouraged everyone to take a moment, to reflect on what they had achieved and how far they had come. "Remember," she reminded them, her voice cutting through the muted hum. "We are not just making noise, we are asserting our rights. We will not shy away from speaking our truths. This is our moment." As they disbanded, Emma's heart raced with an intoxicating mixture of excitement and fear. The burden of leadership pressed down upon her, yet she felt the burning ember of determination in her chest. Would this collective voice be enough to galvanize a decisive victory against Derek? She had no answer, only the profound necessity of risk. Outside, the sun began to dip below the horizon, the golden light transforming into a flame-red sky. This was not just the end of the day. It was the closing of a chapter filled with unyielding tension leading to an inevitable confrontation. Her phone vibrated again, another message, this time from Sarah. "Derek's making moves sooner than we thought. We need to be ready." Like yesterday, the urgency twisted in her gut, the reality of their situation coming into sharp focus. Emma firmed her resolve. The time had come to face Derek, but the question lingered. What sacrifices would this showdown demand from her? How far would she go to protect the stories they had unearthed? The storm was gathering, and Emma knew one thing. Preparation was only the beginning, and the real battle awaited. Emma stood in front of the bathroom mirror, her reflection a swirl of anxious energy and unyielding resolve. The shadows under her eyes mirrored her sleepless nights, filled with thoughts of Derek and the confrontation that loomed ahead. She had guided the mothers toward reclaiming their power, yet she couldn't shake the heavy uncertainty that lingered around her leadership. Was she truly strong enough to navigate this impending storm? The early morning light spilled into the room, illuminating the space but failing to chase away the darkness in her mind. With each passing minute, the gravity of what was about to happen closed in around her, tightening like a vice. She had encouraged the mothers to share their truths, inspiring them to stand up. But what about her own truth? What did she fear saying out loud? This self-reflection became a necessary distraction as she braced for the day ahead. "Emma?" A voice interrupted her thoughts. Sarah poked her head into the bathroom. "We're all meeting downstairs. Are you ready?" "Just a minute," Emma responded, her heart racing at the thought of facing Derek. His presence had always been daunting, a vortex of manipulation and control. But this time everything was different. She wasn't alone. She was a vessel for the collective stories of those she had helped, carrying their strength like a shield. As Emma joined the others, she noticed the tension in the air, palpable yet charged with determination. Each mother's face reflected the battle they had fought to gain this moment of agency, and the thought brought her comfort. Still, doubt gnawed at her. Was she the leader they needed? "All right, everyone," she began, attempting to steady her voice, which betrayed her nerves with a slight quiver. "Today is about our truths. We are here to stand our ground. Remember the stories you've shared and the power embedded within them. We aren't just asking for change, we are demanding it." The group nodded, some murmuring affirmations that encouraged her. She moved around the room, stopping to meet their eyes, offering reaffirming smiles. It was a small act, yet she felt the energy shift, igniting a fire in her belly. "Let's focus on our messages," Emma instructed, her tone growing sharper with clarity. "What do you want him to hear? What do you want him to feel?" Each woman took turns articulating her intention. As they shared, Emma recognized her discomfort dissolving into something more constructive, a determination to own the narrative. With every word exchanged, they dismantled the barriers that Derek had constructed around them. It became a shared catharsis rather than a solitary burden. Suddenly, an idea sparked in her mind. "What if we create an image board?" Emma proposed. "We can visually depict what we fought for, a future free from fear, filled with possibilities." The mothers were instantly engaged, their creativity pouring forth. They worked together, gathering magazines and scissors, tearing into pages that resonated with their hopes. Emma's heart swelled as she watched the transformation. Each cut and collage breathed life into their collective dream. As they finished their board, Emma stepped back, feeling both a part of and apart from this powerful tapestry of resilience. In that moment, she discovered something significant within herself: the ability to lead through collaboration, not from a solitary pedestal. But as she caught a glimpse of the clock ticking ominously, the weight of the moment settled once more. Derek would arrive any minute. Her phone buzzed with another message from Sarah. "He's here." The anxiety returned, and with it a rush of adrenaline. Emma gathered everyone close, her eyes surveying their faces filled with both fear and courage. "This is it," she said, grounding her voice in conviction. "We are here, not to seek his approval, but to make our truth undeniable." As they moved toward the door, Emma felt an unfamiliar but invigorating steadiness within her. This wasn't just about fighting against Derek, it was about an awakening within herself. "Stick together," she instructed, her voice holding a newfound strength. "Whatever happens, remember we are more than our past. We are our future." Just as they stepped out, the chill of uncertainty washed over her again, a wave of countless possibilities crashing against her conscious mind. Was she prepared to face Derek? Would he acknowledge their courage or try to snuff it out? The moment of truth awaited, and as Emma took that first step forward, she felt her heart pounding with unrestrained intensity. What would Derek do when confronted? Not with compliant submission, but with an unyielding strength forged from shared stories. The real battle was just beginning, and within that moment she realized that standing her ground might ignite a fire not just for herself, but for all who had fought to reclaim their destinies. As Emma stepped through the door, the cool air of the hallway juxtaposed sharply against the tension in her chest. The sight of Derek waiting at the end only fortified her resolve. His broad shoulders hunched slightly as he scanned the group. She could see the flicker of recognition in his eyes, quickly masked by a veneer of nonchalance. "Well, well, if it isn't the dream team," he remarked, his smirk flashing just enough to send a shiver down her spine. "Just us," Emma replied, each word crafted to deflect the potency of his gaze. This wasn't just about confronting him. It was about asserting herself, her truth fortified by the women's unwavering presence behind her. Derek's eyes narrowed just faintly, and he took a step closer. "What's the agenda, ladies? Did you come to plead your cases?" An uneasy chuckle escaped her lips as she fought to maintain composure. "We're here to share our truths, and we won't back down." She could feel the heartbeat of the room quicken, resonating with her determination. The mothers, standing firm, echoed her resolve. Each of them pulled strength from one another, creating an almost tangible barrier against Derek's intimidation. Their decision to unite in this moment fortified Emma's sense of purpose. It bolstered her confidence in a way she hadn't anticipated. Driven by a sharp focus, she recalled the stories they had shared, the fears they had faced alone, and how they now stood together, a force to be reckoned with. "You tried to silence us, but no more. We're reclaiming our narratives." Derek shifted, irritation clear in his posture. He had underestimated the power of a united front, and Emma saw his initial surprise morph into calculated resolve. It was a game of chess, and Emma was no longer a pawn. As the back and forth continued, Emma found herself strategizing in real time. Each of Derek's attempts to belittle them sparked clarity in her mind. His words were designed to belittle, but they also illuminated the weaknesses in his argument, his reliance on fear, intimidation, and control. "You think your power intimidates us," Emma said coldly, "but we're standing here, unarmed yet unyielding." The air crackled as their dialogue escalated. She watched him draw in a slow breath, attempting to regroup, and that pause was her opening. "What you don't understand is that the more you push, the more we'll rise. You've only ever seen us as victims, arranged neatly beneath your thumb. But that ends today." As Derek attempted to pivot the conversation, Emma redirected with intent. "Your vision for this community ends at your disregard for our truths. We have stories to tell, powerful ones that demand to be heard." The sound of each mother's affirmation reinforced Emma's confidence, so she leaned into the gravity of her growing authority. "We're not here for your permission. This is about acknowledging our humanity." Derek faltered, and for the first time doubt flickered across his face. Emma seized the moment, asking questions layered in truth. "What will your legacy be, Derek? A tyrant remembered for his cruelty, or someone who contributed to real change?" The tension shifted palpably, like a storm cloud crackling with potential. They were no longer in the presence of a monolith. This man, once a symbol of fear, was now standing on shaky ground. The alertness in Emma's mind heightened significantly. She was learning to navigate, to confront, and to uncover not just strength in numbers, but strength within herself. Emma felt liberated. Each word she spoke resonated deeper within her, dispelling the long-held fears and doubts about her role. She was more than just a leader exhibiting strength. She was a catalyst for transformation. But as the heated exchange continued, Emma sensed a deeper threat. Derek was backing against the wall, but she couldn't ignore the dark undertones in his demeanor. She could only wonder, what would he do in desperation? Would he lash out in a final attempt to reclaim control? Or would he realize he had lost the power he so desperately clung to? The stakes rose as Emma sharpened her focus. As the confrontation deepened, she realized that revealing her own truth was as critical as exposing his weaknesses. The foundation of her new strength was built upon authenticity, and no matter how difficult it grew, she would not falter. "Derek," she began, her voice steady yet piercing, "it's time to face the truth. Sooner or later, everyone must confront the reality they've created. Are you ready to face yours?" As the question hung heavily in the air, Derek's expression darkened, and the realization struck her. The battle was far from over. The real confrontation would push boundaries she hadn't yet imagined. The cadence of the moment was electrifying, and as she caught a glimpse into Derek's fractured psyche, Emma braced herself for what might come next. Would he retaliate, or would this moment of truth turn the tide irrevocably? The real challenge had only just begun. Emma held her breath, the tension in the air thickening as Derek's eyes roamed her face, searching for weakness, searching for any indication that he could reclaim the upper hand. This moment was pivotal, not just for her and the other women, but for Derek as well. The understanding settled over her. This confrontation wasn't solely about power, but also about vulnerability and recognition. He squared his shoulders, a semblance of composure returning as he spoke through gritted teeth. "You think you have the upper hand, but your moment of courage is just that, a moment. What makes you believe that you can change anything here?" Emma felt the urge to cringe beneath his disdain, but instead she stood taller. "Because we're not waiting for you to validate us anymore. Your perceived power is a mirage, Derek. It's time to dispel it." The words became a personal affirmation, reinforcing the transformation she was undergoing. She had just declared war on the very fear that had gripped her for years. As she spoke, the faces of the mothers behind her illuminated with understanding and resolve, a coalition of experiences reaffirming her stance. They were beyond support. They were her foundation. Emma's voice steadied. "Your power has always been rooted in our silence. We're choosing to speak now, and it terrifies you. That's why you're lashing out. Derek faltered for a moment, the crack in his facade widening. For the first time, Emma saw the flicker of desperation in his demeanor, a moment's vulnerability that could shift the battle's momentum. Could this be the moment she had been waiting for? The opportunity to pierce through his armor and reveal the man beneath the tyrant? In that brief pause, doubt washed over him. Emma seized the moment. "You've built a legacy upon our disappointment, Derek. It's shameful, and you know it. Your entire authority rests on a shaky foundation of fear. What's left if we strip that away?" His eyes sparked, a defensive mechanism kicking in. "You think you're clever, don't you? But the truth is, you'll always need someone to hold the reins. You'll never be able to manage without me." Emma's heart raced at his assertions. She was more aware than ever that the battle was also a deeply personal one. His words lodged themselves in her mind, a reflection of insecurity in her own abilities. Had she unwittingly acknowledged a fragment of truth in his taunts? She paused. "No, Derek, you might have been the one with the reins, but I'm not that woman anymore. I've begun to forge a new path alongside these brave women. It's not just about leading, it's about empowering, about lifting one another up." With each spoken truth, chains of self-doubt began to shatter within Emma. She felt the weight of her voice, now drenched in authenticity. Derek's expression flickered between anger and confusion, a complex tapestry reflecting his unraveling control. "This is all so naive, Emma. You think this defiance makes you strong? It only makes you foolish. Strength isn't merely an absence of fear, it's knowing when to embrace it," she shot back, her words deeper than just a response. It was an epiphany. As their exchange escalated, Emma realized she was no longer wrestling with his perceptions of her. She had shifted from feeling weak under scrutiny to recognizing her fortitude. Yet as Derek's face hardened again, the tension shifted towards an unexpected edge. "If you think this is some sort of victory, you're sorely mistaken," he hissed, and Emma felt a shiver run down her spine. Something beyond words lurked behind his anger, a threat barely masked. Regardless, she resolved in that moment. She'd walk through the discomfort, the uncertainty. If she was destined to redefine her truth, she needed to push further. "I refuse to let fear dictate my future any longer, Derek. You will not silence me." Just as she finished, a small wave of recognition flickered through the crowd. It was as if the air had changed, charged with weighty anticipation. She could hear her pulse in her ears, a steady rhythm building with every heartbeat. Would he yield or lash out desperately in a last attempt to regain control? The stakes were at an all-time high, as the delicate balance between confrontation and understanding teetered on the edge. With resolve, Emma knew there was no turning back. Would Derek unleash something darker in response to their defiance? Or could she finally extract the truth he refused to acknowledge? The thought hung in the air, a promise of what was yet to unfold. Emma braced herself, knowing the real confrontation loomed close, and only authenticity would guide her through. Emma stood resolute, confronting Derek Collins, having traversed a journey from fear to empowerment. With the echoes of the shared truths from the other mothers bolstering her, she was transformed. The weight of doubt and hesitation that had once clouded her actions shattered in the heat of the moment. "You won't silence us," she asserted, her heart racing with a blend of bravado and vulnerability. There was a power surging through her now, a sense of agency that had once felt beyond her reach. Each word she spoke was imbued with the experiences of all the women standing behind her, ready to affirm their worth. Derek's facade began cracking, irritation dancing in his eyes. "You think your little rally of sentiments will change anything?" he scoffed, but there was an undercurrent of fear that belied his confidence. Emma could sense it, a shift in the atmosphere that pushed her further into her truth. "Yes, Derek," she retorted, her voice strong and steady. "When a community chooses to reclaim their narrative, real change happens. We're not here to plead. We're here to demand respect." The resonance of her statement charged the air with palpable energy. Emma could feel her pulse align with the rhythm of her purpose, and it invigorated her to push harder. The stakes were unprecedented. She was not just fighting for herself, but for every marginalized voice that had been silenced for too long. As he opened his mouth to reply, she pressed on. You've built your empire on the backs of those who toil in the shadows, and today, you will face the consequences of that choice. The intensity of her declaration caught Derek off guard. Despite his stature, Emma sensed the unease pressing against him, the way his posture faltered slightly with her every accusation. Your time of tyranny is ending, and we are here to dismantle it. A tremor of uncertainty rippled through the gathered crowd behind Emma, but she felt a surge of courage, fueling her resolve to guide them through their fears. Today, we reveal our strength, she called out, her voice unified with the hopes of every woman there. Your threats don't hold power over us anymore. The realization dawned on Emma that by speaking not just for herself but for her community, she was stepping into a new role, a leader forged through fires of adversity. Each confrontation with Derek was an opportunity to redefine boundaries, not only for him but for herself too. As she continued her impassioned speech, Emma witnessed subtle shifts in the responses of those present. Several mothers nodded in agreement, their belief in their collective power igniting anew. She caught glimmers of recognition in their eyes, as if they too were awakening from a slumber that had held them captive for far too long. Derek, cornered now, attempted to regain control. You think you can sway public opinion with this drama? People crave security. What do you really have to offer? He spat, his bravado crumbling. Emma stepped forward undeterred. Security does not stem from oppression. It flourishes in the light of truth and integrity. We are here to claim that truth. The energy in the room shifted ominously with the weight of her words, resonating in a way that felt liberating, yet daunting. Let's not confuse power with exploitation. There's a fine line you've crossed. Her eyes fixed on Derek, she felt a sense of liberation. Emma had transitioned from vulnerability to a fierce warrior, each word she spoke reinforcing her newfound confidence. Derek's expression soured and he swept his gaze across the crowd, searching desperately for the respect he once commanded. The shift in the narrative was undeniable. Emma could feel it resonate like a heartbeat beneath the surface. Even if you disrupt my plans, you can't change the greater game, he countered. But the defiance in Emma's eyes quashed his attempts. Where there's will, there's a way, Emma replied firmly. We're no longer passive. Each story shared today anchors our resolve. Those with true power are the ones who empower others, not the ones who belittle them. The room buzzed with a sense of collective strength, and Emma knew she had traversed a distance she hadn't dared envision. There was a solidity in her commitment. She had transformed from an anonymous MAID into a formidable force for change. As Derek's composure wavered, Emma sensed an opportunity to propel them forward. We will document our truth, we will gather our voices, and we will make sure those who don't want to listen will hear us loud and clear. With bold intent, she took the final step forward, feeling the collective force of her allies encircle her. Today was the turning point. The murmurs of courage pulsed through her veins. Each word resonated as a testament to their shared resolve, unyielding in the face of adversity. Derek's expression shifted from smugness to confusion, revealing cracks in his well-constructed facade. He now faced not only the community he had sought to undermine, but a woman who had refused to remain in the shadows. Today, we unleash our stories, and you will answer for what you've taken, Emma declared with unwavering strength. You may wield power, Derek, but you're about to discover the strength of the immensely overlooked. In that decisive moment, Emma had transformed from an unassuming maid, defined by her socio-economic status, into a fierce advocate, confidently leading her community toward a new dawn. Her heart swelled with a sense of achievement, as this confrontation was not just theirs, it was a symbol of triumph against adversity. As Emma basked in the fulfillment of her newfound agency, she felt an inkling of what lay ahead, a world where silence was no longer an option, and truth, not tyranny, would reign supreme. She had achieved more than she ever dreamed. Together, a united front would reclaim their collective narrative, step into their empowerment, and leave behind the darkness that Derek had sown. It was time to rise. The shift had begun. Now it's your turn to step into this powerful journey of transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories filled with courage and strength. Leave a like now to support this movement and fuel the algorithm to share these vital narratives. Comment your thoughts and theories about this extraordinary conclusion below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel inspired by the strength of personal overcoming stories. True fans of resilience understand the importance of spreading the word.